Hunter Biden is caught on tape telling a prostitute about his prior laptop problems. Despite another bad inflation report, the Biden administration keeps blowing out the spending, and the lockdown crowd has no answers, but lots of momentum. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. The Ben Shapiro Show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Why haven't you gotten a VPN yet? Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. We'll get to all the news in just one moment, and I have some rather stirring news on Hunter Biden to get to. First, you should actually save money by going and switching your cell phone coverage over to Pure Talk USA. It's a thing that you should do right now. You're spending too much money on your cell phone coverage. If you're with Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile, you are just paying too much. I want you to switch over to Pure Talk today, because Pure Talk could save your family over $800 a year. Yes, same great coverage, because Pure Talk is on the exact same network as one of the big three, but at a fraction of the price. And switching is as easy as switching out your SIM card. You can keep your phone, keep your number, or get enormous discounts on the latest iPhones and Androids. Plus, right now, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. And if you go over on the data, they don't charge you for it. There's a reason Pure Talk is the highest rated wireless company by Consumer Affairs, why they are the preferred wireless partner of AMAC. From your cell phone, dial pound 250, say Ben Shapiro to get started. Save an additional 50% off your very first month. That is pound 250, say Ben Shapiro to get started. And again, you're not just saving 50% on your first month. You could be saving hundreds of dollars a year, like up to $800 a year or more from Pure Talk USA. Go check them out right now. Alrighty, so Hunter Biden is apparently the smartest person that Joe Biden knows, which is incredible, because what this means is that Joe Biden just spends his days hanging around 5-year-olds. That is the only plausible explanation for how Hunter Biden is the smartest person that he knows, because kids are unintelligent and Hunter Biden is really unintelligent. And so I have picked the age of 5, because if you go to the age of 6, Hunter Biden still would not be the smartest person that Joe Biden knows. So now we have this story about Hunter Biden, in which he violates all the rules of prostitution. According to the UK Daily Mail, Hunter Biden claimed that Russians stole one of his laptops for blackmail while he was close to overdosing in a Las Vegas hotel room, the Daily Mail can reveal. The alleged incident would mean Hunter lost a total of 3 computers. The first, abandoned at a Delaware computer store. The second, seized by federal agents. Like, this is a weird way to lose computers, by the way. Like, if you've ever lost a computer, it's usually like you were on a plane and then you just forgot it there. But to lose 3, and the first one you abandoned at a computer store and just forgot about it. And the second one was seized by federal agents. And the third was stolen by the Ruskies. I will say your record with computers is extremely poor, and you really should think about a more mobile form of technology at this point. The third laptop apparently is still missing. It was taken by Russian drug dealers after they partied with Hunter in Vegas. He told a prostitute in a conversation caught on camera. So here's what happened. He filmed himself having sex with the woman using his laptop in January 2019, and then decided, you know what? We need like some after roll here, right? It's like the after the credits section of the sex tape. He left the camera rolling as he recounted a Vegas bender in which he spent 18 days going around from penthouse suite to penthouse suite, sometimes costing $10,000 a night. But don't worry, guys. He is very well qualified. He earned all that kind of money by being the smartest person that Joe Biden knows. He didn't use the Biden name in any way, shape, or form to get extremely wealthy and then use all of that money on coke-fueled binges with multiple prostitutes, moving hotel to hotel. No, he's brilliant. I mean, like in Joe Biden's Rolodex of brilliant people that he knows, and there's so many brilliant people he knows. I mean, his wife is a doctor, for one. I mean, like the greatest doctor in all the land. And then you got Hunter, who is just a world-beating businessman, like an incredible, incredible businessman. It's really an impressive show. So here was a little bit of what it sounded like when Hunter was speaking to this prostitute, who had to be like, God, you're so boring, but you're also paying me $2,000 an hour. Ugh, I can't even. But at the same time, the money is so good. And if I tell him that this can of Parmesan cheese that I just picked up at the grocery is Coke, he will hand me another $100,000. So the prostitute is very, I would say, lax in allowing him to speak to her this way. Here's what the tape sounded like.
My computer, I've taken tons of just left that cam on. He would always put it. He had my passcode and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. And somebody stole them during that period of time.
What does the computers have to do with?
They have videos of me doing this. They have videos of me doing crazy sex. You know?
Crazy effing sex. And she's like, well, then what did you just pay me for? So that's weird. And also, the P tape is real, but it stars Hunter Biden. Now, the reason we're leading with this story is number one, because it's hilarious. But number two, because if this were Donald Trump Jr., you know that it would lead every network news hour for like the next month. But it's Hunter Biden, so he's just a wayward child, guys. He's just a small child who's 51 years old. Right? He's just a very small, wayward child who's 14 years my senior. That's all. And who happens to be like one of the worst people I've ever heard of. But also the smartest person that Joe Biden knows. And who is still going around, like picking up bags of cash based on his daddy's last name. Although now he's become a great artist, we know. Right? Which explains the dissolution. Usually you have to be the artist first before you can be a dissolute artist. But he actually started with the dissolution and then he became an artist, which is actually going at it sort of ass backwards, right? He started off with the coke-fueled binges and the benders with prostitutes. And then he moved into making crappy art, as opposed to usually it's the other way around, which is you start off as an artist and then you like move into the artist dissolute lifestyle. So you know, he really likes to do everything, I think, in new and interesting ways. So a few things about this. One, my understanding is that this means he has violated like all of the rules of prostitution. Okay, so Hugh Grant famously suggested about prostitution, right? He was dating Elizabeth Hurley. You'll recall was he married to Elizabeth Hurley at the time? May have been married to her, but he was at least dating her at the time. And he was stripping prostitutes on the side. And everybody was like, wait up. You're married to Elizabeth Hurley and you are going to prostitutes? And Hugh Grant, his line about this was, I don't pay them for the sex, I pay them to leave. Okay, well, okay, fair enough. Apparently Hunter Biden never really got the message. And so he just talks to the prostitutes also, which is like, okay, all right. Okay, so he's violating all the rules of prostitution as I understand them. And granted, I am not the world's greatest expert on prostitution, but I feel like these are fairly ironclad rules. One, don't use them. Two, if you are going to use a prostitute, don't talk to them about all your life problems because you're literally having to pay them for sex, so they don't care about them. And they probably are not great repositories of information. Like, I don't think that they are big on the NDA per se. Like, it doesn't seem like the most trustworthy crowd. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Okay, and then number three, if you are going to talk about all your life problems, being a famous person like Hunter Biden, if you are in fact going to do that, then probably don't talk on tape, on a laptop, right? That's rule number three. Rule number four, if you are going to, one, have sex with a prostitute, two, talk to the prostitute about all your life problems, three, do all of it on tape on your laptop, then four, what you talk about should not be how your prior laptops have been stolen to your great discontent, because that creates a sort of incentive structure for people to steal your laptop. And it turns out, of course, that this laptop did not end up in his hands, just like every other laptop. So, guys, if you're ever at the airport and you see Hunter Biden there and you really have to go to the bathroom and your laptop is in your backpack, do not ask Hunter Biden to watch your backpack. Do not do it. It is not going to end well in any way, shape, or form. What a delight Hunter Biden is. And by the way, if you ask questions about this, this means you're bad. How dare you? Because Hunter Biden is a wonderful, wonderful man. And we know he's a wonderful man because his last name is Biden, and Joe Biden is a wonderful man. My favorite part of this is really great. The prostitute asked Hunter if he was worried. Remember, he said that he had a laptop and the Russians stole it. Quote from the Daily Mail. The prostitute asked Hunter if he was worried the Russian alleged thieves would try to blackmail him. Hunter replied, yeah, in some way, yeah. My dad is running for president. He is. I talk about it all the time. If they do, he also knows I make like $1 gazillion. Hunter appeared to be dismayed that if the video is sold by the alleged thieves to porn news companies, he would be unable to cash in on the explicit videos himself. Yeah, because there's a huge market, it turns out, for Hunter Biden sex tapes. It's like One Night in Paris, except with a slightly overweight, dissolute politician's son. The huge market for that sort of thing. He said, quote, I'm worried he gets the money up front and maybe it doesn't do $1 million. Maybe it does $3 million. Maybe nobody wants to see me naked. Maybe it's news interest. And because my dad's a public figure, they say, we don't have to pay you anything because you're of interest in regular news. The prostitute said, I think you should just beat him to the punch. I think you should release your own video. That's spectacular. Okay, like I love that Hunter Biden, the smartest person that Joe Biden knows, his big business idea is what if I screw a prostitute, put it on my laptop, and then sell the tape? No, I guarantee you, there's a breed of man who when he's dating a woman, or when he's trying to date a woman, he's not even dating her, when he's trying to date a woman, he thinks that the best available thing that he can do to woo a woman is to send a picture of his, right? There is that breed of man. And I've always thought, who is that guy? Like, who is the guy who thought, you know what? What this random woman really wants is a picture of my job. We know who the guy is now. The guy's Hunter Biden, right? He's like, I have a money-making proposition for you, prostitute lady. My money-making proposition is we go halvesies on the sex, and then we also go halvesies on the sex tape. Or I pay you nothing. But my favorite part there is where she asks him explicitly, aren't you afraid you'll be blackmailed? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, cool. Isn't that what's going on? It's not good. Okay, by the way, photos on the laptop hard drive obtained by the Daily Mail include pictures of a woman's Russian passport and photos of Hunter topless, pulling the woman's brunette hair while she kneels on a bed. Other photos show the woman and 3 young men driving to Hunter's former Hollywood Hills rented home, drinking and partying by the pool, and 2 women naked with Hunter by the pool. It's unclear whether the Russian woman and the 3 men are the same people Hunter accused of stealing his laptop. So the good news is that all got sent to the cloud. So apparently he could re-download that to the new computer to make sure that he had it with him wherever he went. Now, some people, we like to have pictures of our wives and our kids on the cloud. Hunter has very important things, like random people he has sex with and does drugs with on the cloud. Well, at least he's not the president's son. At least that. Alrighty, in just 1 second, we will get to the inflation record of the Biden administration. And no, I'm not talking about Hunter Biden anymore. We've moved on. First, let us discuss the fact that some of us are actually adults, right? Many of us are adults. And when you're an adult, that means that you need life insurance because God forbid you're walking down the street and a car comes right at you and you jump out of the way to avoid the car and you jump directly into a manhole and it's 10 feet deep and you fall down into the manhole and you break your legs and it turns out that you cannot crawl out as there is a wave of sewage that just washes you away, right? If any of that were to happen, you need life insurance, right? I mean, and that's why you need Policy Genius. Policy Genius makes it easy to compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. Why compare? Well, you could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. You could save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance by using Policy Genius to compare your policies. I love this ad too much. The licensed experts at Policy Genius work for you, not the insurance company, so you can trust them to help you navigate every step of the shopping and buying process. That kind of service has earned Policy Genius thousands of 5-star reviews across Trustpilot and Google. And eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week thanks to an award-winning policy option that swaps the standard medical exam requirement for a simple phone call. This exclusive policy was recently rated #1 by Forbes, higher than options from Ladder, Bestow, and Ethos. It's really easy. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro right now and get started. Policy Genius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice, very important, and adult to get it right. Okay, so, well, Hunter Biden is going around inflating his own finances as well as his genitals. It turns out that his father is just busy inflating the economy. According to the Wall Street Journal, we now have another terrible inflationary report. According to the Wall Street Journal, inflation remained elevated in July as the economic recovery continued, but prices showed evidence of cooling amid pandemic-related supply problems and signs that the recent rise in coronavirus infections is starting to crimp some business activity. So it sounds like a great time to blow more money into the economy. We have a massive inflation rate. We have a drop-off in demand. Oh, goody gumdrops. This is called stagflation. When you have an inflation in the price, but a drop-off in the demand, this is called stagnation, stagflation. Yeah, that's how that word comes to be. So that is what we are starting to look at, perhaps. Consumer prices rose 5.4% in July from a year earlier, the same pace as in June. This is the highest 12-month rate since 2008, the Labor Department reported on Wednesday. On a monthly basis, the price pressures did weaken. The department's consumer price index climbed a seasonally adjusted 0.5% in July from June. That's a significantly slower pace than the 0.9% increase in June from May. Okay, so there are a bunch of problems happening right now. One is COVID-related. Some people are not going back to work. Another problem that we are experiencing right now is a continued price inflation. And then the biggest problem of all is what happens if we just don't have systemic demand. This is what happened throughout the 1990s in Japan. So throughout the 1980s, Japan was supposed to be the place that was on the make. Japan was going to overtake the United States. And then it turns out the demand dropped off and they just had stagnation for like a decade. And they really have never recovered, the Japanese economy. The idea of secular stagnation, I've talked about it on the program before. That is actually a greater threat at this point to the possible growth of the American economy than inflation is. But inflation is still a major problem for many, many Americans. And so Joe Biden said, no, this is a good monthly report. Everything is fine, guys. It's fine. Everything's good.
The latest report on consumer prices show that we've expanded some easing, the expected easing we thought was going to come has increased, that we've seen a good monthly report. The monthly core consumer price index is down by nearly 2/3 from its pace over the past 3 months.
Okay, so he's picking and choosing which prices supposedly matter when he looks at the consumer price index. Jen Psaki said the same thing. She said core inflation is fine. And it's just over at the margins that we're having inflationary problems. Really, is it? Here's Jen Psaki.
If you actually look at the numbers and the trends over the last several months, it shows that core inflation was not only below expectations, but it decelerated from last month and even from the month prior. So over the last couple of months, we actually saw it trended downward over the last 3 months. And that is an encouraging sign.
Okay, so they're saying that the inflation is starting to wane. Okay, there's only one problem. The inflation that is already baked in because you guys are pouring money into the economy is resulting in a lot of people not going back to work. According to the Wall Street Journal 2 days ago, millions of Americans are unemployed despite record job openings. The hardest hit industries have yet to get back to the pre-pandemic levels. According to the Wall Street Journal, the number of available jobs since May has outnumbered Americans looking for work. One factor is a mismatch between where people want to work and which industries are hiring. The hardest hit industries have yet to recover to pre-pandemic levels when 63% of Americans were in the labor force. In July, there are 5.7 million fewer jobs on a seasonally adjusted basis than there were in February of 2020, according to Labor Department data. The number of people trying to get back into the workforce has rebounded since the early days of the pandemic. The share of adults working or looking for a job has increased slightly from a low of 60.2% in April of last year to 61.7% in July. However, what this means is that there are millions of jobs that are going unfilled right now. Employers still have 6.6 million fewer jobs on the payroll than they did last year, but there's still 10 million job openings from June. Okay, and if those were filled, we'd be back above where we were before the pandemic started. But those jobs aren't being filled because people are being told to stay home. Okay, there's a serious holdup in the economy, and that is pouring all of this money into the economy right now. And it's affecting people on a pretty day-to-day level. Tyson Foods, for example, just raised its prices to keep up with inflation. This is how inflation works, by the way. When there is too much money chasing too few products, everybody has to raise prices to compensate. According to Reuters, Tyson Foods cannot increase prices for chicken and prepared foods fast enough to keep pace with rising costs for raw materials like grain, Chief Executive Donnie King said on Monday after the company reported higher than expected quarterly earnings. And we have lots of reports right now that are being cheered by the left. Reports about how employers are offering these insane benefits to get people to work. And isn't that just wonderful? Isn't that just great? Well, that's great up until the point where the demand falls off, in which case all those people get fired, right? That is the problem with stagnation. If you are artificially increasing the economy and telling people to come home or tell people to stay home, they won't come to work unless you offer them these exorbitant benefits. The exorbitant benefits come with price increases. But what happens when the demand levels off because the stimulus stopped? Because you can't just do quantitative easing forever. Or can you? Apparently, the Biden administration kind of thinks that you can. By the way, this is pretty incredible. The White House is now noticing that gasoline prices have been heavily on the rise. We were just in California. And in California, the gas prices are in excess of $5 a gallon, which is just insane. That's a really, really high price. Well, President Biden, he admits that the gas prices, he says that they're lower than they were, 10 years ago, but they're still really, really high right now.
Today, gas prices are lower than they were early in this decade, but they're still high enough to create a pinch on working families. One key thing about the infrastructure bill that just passed the Senate is there are no gas tax increases. No gas tax increases. I made that absolutely clear that I would not raise gas taxes. I'm glad everyone in the Senate seemed to agree with that.
I have a question. Why not? I was informed that gas is really, really bad for the environment. In fact, it turns out that the White House is now calling on OPEC and its oil-producing allies to boost production in an effort to combat climbing gasoline prices. But I was told by the left that climbing gasoline prices are a good. That is a good thing, isn't it? Right? I thought that the price inflation we're seeing, that's not a reflection of inflation. That is a reflection of all the pent-up demand. So if that's the case, why are you trying to artificially decrease oil prices? Wouldn't it be good for oil prices to remain high from an environmental perspective? After all, that would create the market incentive for people to get with the green energy program. But Joe Biden is not willing to risk that because Joe Biden understands the reality here, which is that the fundamentals of the economy are still quite problematic. And that when you inflate the economy, you end up blowing up the price of gas. And there are a lot of people out there who still need the gas. And so instead, he is carving a hole in his entire environmental agenda by going direct to OPEC and asking them to increase the supply of oil in order to lower the price. It's worth pointing out the hypocrisy of the Biden administration. They're all for green energy until it comes to the point when the price of gasoline rises, at which point they immediately say no gas taxes. And also, OPEC, do you mind, cranking up the production just a little bit? Meanwhile, is the Senate slowing down at all? Not for one iota of a moment. According to justthenews.com, the Democrat-led Senate has now okayed more than $4 trillion of spending in less than 24 hours. They voted to authorize all of this over the last 24 hours. The Senate passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. That includes $517 billion in new spending and a reauthorization of funding from the highway bill. The Senate then moved to debate on the Democrats' filibuster-proof $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation proposal. The framework for the plan authorizing that level of federal spending passed in a 50-49 vote early Wednesday morning at 3:50 a.m. The reconciliation bill includes new spending programs related to tuition-free community college, which is a terrible idea, universal pre-K, support for childcare, Medicaid expansion. It contains tax increases like a corporate tax rate hike to pay for part of the bill. Once the proposal is turned into formal legislative language, it will be put up for a final vote on the Senate floor. It can only pass if all the Democrats vote in favor of it. And the Democrats are making clear that this is exactly what they want to do. In fact, House Democrats are already threatening that they're not going to vote for the infrastructure plan, the bipartisan infrastructure plan, unless they get precisely what they want, which is this $3.5 trillion boondoggle of a budget. So we're just going to continue throwing money into the system, even as inflation rises, and even as the demand seems to be stagnating, which is what is causing a crimp in the inflation right now. Alrighty, in just 1 second, we'll get to the greatest indicator that our Congress just doesn't know what the hell it is doing, and that they see everything as just a grab bag of cash for themselves. We'll get to that in just one moment. First, let us talk about something that can make your home look great and not cost you a fortune. I am talking about changing your window coverings. Blinds.com. They make it simple to shop top quality custom blinds, shades, and interior shutters from home with easy online ordering and free shipping. The experts at Blinds.com understand that window treatments are one of those household items you don't just think about, but they can make a huge impact on the look and feel of your home. You don't need to do a full renovation. By simply changing what is on the windows, you can change the way light comes into your home and create a totally different feel. Head on over to Blinds.com, take a look at all the options like faux wood blinds, cellular and roller shades, even outdoor shades, all customizable to your specific dimensions. If you're nervous about trying them, their Sure Fit guarantee has you covered. Blinds.com, they've helped millions of homeowners through the process. Plus, they guarantee that perfect fit, whether you do it yourself or have them measure and install everything for you. I really appreciate having great sets of blinds in my home. You will too. It makes a huge difference on the way that light comes into your home, which is a big, big thing. Go right now, see how much you can save at Blinds.com. When you check out online, don't forget to tell them you heard about Blinds.com from The Ben Shapiro Show. Rules and restrictions may apply. Alrighty, meanwhile, as we speak about this, the infrastructure bill passed by a huge margin. A bunch of Republicans voted in favor and now moved to that Democratic-led House. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell joined the Democrats in voting for the bill. The bill passed 69-30, so a bunch of Republicans voted in favor of this bill. This bill, by the way, includes the first step toward the government really cracking down on cryptocurrency. Now, I know a lot of people don't understand what cryptocurrency is. It's kind of confusing, right? If you don't understand what cryptocurrency is, I have a YouTube video that you definitely should check out where I go through what Bitcoin is and what the roots of it are and all of that. Suffice it to say, what cryptocurrency really is a threat to the fiat currency regime of the United States and other countries. Cryptocurrency allows people to trade with each other without having to resort to currencies that can be inflated by centralized governments. And also, they act as a repository of value, sort of like gold, right? Because basically what Bitcoin is, for example, is it is a digital form of, it's basically a digital code that churns out so-called coins at regularized intervals and then does not do any more than that, right? And there's a whole system by which the ownership of these coins is verified and all of that. But what the main kind of cachet of the thing is that it's a trustless system. It doesn't require you to go to a bank. You don't have to have a bank account in order to use Bitcoin, right? You have a wallet, that's it. And you don't have to worry about transferring your Bitcoin from one currency into another currency. And so this is a threat to a lot of governments because governments like for you to use dollars, or it's the yuan or the renminbi if you're talking about the Chinese government. They like for you to use centralized currencies because this is how they get out of their debt problem. Every time a government racks up a monster debt, what they do is they inflate their currency. And they just start slowly inflating their way out of that debt. Bitcoin provides an alternative to that. It also, by the way, disintermediates like the entire banking system. It really is kind of incredible. You don't think about how when you use your credit card, every time you use your credit card, there are between 7 and 10 companies that are involved in every single use of your credit card. And by the way, it takes like days for every credit card transaction to actually be verified, which is why you'll get a call from your fraud company 2 days after you've used your credit card on a particular transaction. So there are all sorts of middlemen that are cut out of the process by Bitcoin, by cryptocurrencies generally. And cryptocurrencies are becoming ever more sophisticated. This is really cool stuff. What it is more than anything is it's an almost anarchic decentralization of a process that the elitists in our society believe they should have control over and not you. So what is government doing about this? Well, what government could be doing in the United States is using Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a way to break the Chinese financial stranglehold on that part of the world. Because Chinese citizens right now have to trade using the yuan, for example. Right? They have to trade using digital currencies that are being created by the Chinese government. But what if they didn't have to? What if they could trade straight in dollars? What if the United States, for example, created its own Fed coin or pushed forward stable coin, which is tied to the price of the dollar? Well, then the Chinese would be in real trouble. But the American government is too stupid to see this. So instead, what you get is them attempting to undermine cryptocurrencies because those cryptocurrencies could theoretically be a threat to America's ability to be the world currency and America's ability to blow out the spending and then inflate their way out of it later. Okay, which is why it makes it kind of troubling that along with this infrastructure package, according to Quartz.com, the U.S. Senate passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill on Tuesday with a glaring problem for the cryptocurrency industry. The bill includes vague new tax reporting requirements that digital rights advocates say threaten individual privacy and crypto advocates say could hamstring industry innovation in the United States. The bill's authors focused on closing the so-called crypto tax gap to pay for some of the massive spending plan. Bottom line is this. There are a lot of people who are using crypto to trade. There are a lot of people who are buying crypto. And the government doesn't like that you're making money. And so the government wants to take that money away from you. And they want to penalize you for engaging in a system that rivals the United States dollar in some ways, even though it is not nearly big enough to rival the US dollar in any real sense, even though not enough companies have adopted the ability to pay with Bitcoin yet for it even to be seen as a true kind of global currency in the same way that the US dollar is. When government sees a thing that is successful, government's first move is, how can I steal that money and use it to my own benefit? And that is what they're doing with cryptocurrency. The bill requires any crypto broker, defined as anyone responsible for and regularly providing any service effectuating transfer of digital assets on behalf of another person, to report users' names and addresses. That leaves all sorts of players in the crypto space, including miners and software developers, on the hook, even though many of them do not currently gather or access personal information about users, many of whom are anonymous. Like, suffice it to say, there is a wide scale understanding this is a bad piece of legislation. Right? The people who are attempting to push back against this, by the way, were people ranging from the far left, like Ron Wyden in Oregon, all the way to Ted Cruz on the right. Anyone with any semblance of understanding of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was against what this bill did. They pushed forward with the bill anyway. And they pushed forward with it because in the end, Congress does not care what sort of innovation they stifle. Congress does not care what industries they strangle in the crib. They don't care about any of that stuff. All they care about is how can they grab your cash. That's it. The original language, by the way, of the bill, there were amendments that were proposed. But those amendments were put to the side because it was important that nothing be amended so that they could pass this stupid infrastructure bill. It's a huge problem for crypto. The Biden administration, for its own sake, it has said, well, you know, in the end, we're probably not going to enforce it the way you guys fear we're going to enforce it. But bottom line is this. Once you hand that sort of power to bureaucrats, it's like Chekhov's gun. Once it's above the mantle, it will be used at some point in a way that you don't particularly like. Alrighty, coming up, we'll get to the latest in everything COVID related. First, let us talk about the greatest underwear on the planet. I'm talking, of course, about Tommy John. They grace this magnificent tuchus at this particular moment, and they can grace your tuchus as well. And let me just tell you, these underwear are spectacular. Apollo men's underwear. It's proven to keep you drier and up to 7 degrees cooler than regular cotton underwear, which is why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. Apollo underwear is soft, supportive stretches for the perfect fit every day, is available up to size 4XL. With over 15 million pairs sold, men across America love Tommy John underwear. And like all Tommy John underwear, Apollo comes with the best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. Tommy John's new Apollo men's underwear is high-end for your rear end. You can't get them anywhere else. I already told you, I took all the other underwear that I had after I started using Tommy John, I threw them out because they just don't compare. There's no comparison. By the way, one of the things I love about Tommy Johns, they're extremely durable. You can throw them in the wash 1,000 times and they come out like with the same quality that you had the first time you tried them on. Right now, get 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/Ben. Go to TommyJohn.com/Ben for 20% off. That's TommyJohn.com/Ben. See site for detailed. Alrighty. Meanwhile, the fanaticism on COVID continues. Now, there is new data out about COVID and the vaccines. The new data suggests that the Pfizer vaccine is not supremely effective when it comes to preventing infection against Delta. We already knew this, right? We knew in Israel, for example, there was some data that suggested that the Pfizer vaccine was only 30-something% effective against the transmission of Delta among the vaccinated, right? That you could get a breakthrough case fairly easily, even if you were vaccinated in Israel. Here's the thing. Who cares? Who cares? Let me reiterate. Who cares? Once more. I don't care. You shouldn't care. Cases don't matter. Cases are irrelevant. How many cases of colds were there in the United States last year? Any idea? I don't have any idea. You know why? I don't care. You don't care either. You know why? It's a cold. Okay, once you have had the vaccine, COVID is now downgraded to the level of a mild flu at worst or a cold. The levels of death from COVID, yes, with the Delta variant, are extremely, extremely low. So who cares that you can transmit it or that you can get it pretty easily if you've already had the vaccine? I don't care that I can get a cold. I still walk around without a mask in normal everyday life, as should you. Okay, what this actually should say is, okay, well, since everybody who has had the vaccine can still get this thing and then presumably still transmit it, although we don't have the full data on transmission yet. Even if that's the case, what that really means is there is no way we're getting to zero COVID. Zero COVID is not a thing that's going to happen. And so everybody should go out and live their lives now. That's what that actually means. And yet, the idea from the left is that they have a way to shut this down. And they don't. They just don't. It's just about control at this point. That's the part that's totally maddening. No one has a way to prevent a future variant. If a future variant is coming, it's coming. No one has a way to prevent this thing from transmitting because literally hundreds of millions of human beings have had this thing at this point. Okay, in fact, the only country right now that I'm aware of that has had no real Delta surge in terms of death is Sweden. Okay, is there any wonder for that? Like I'm looking right now at Sweden's case rate. Okay, Sweden's COVID cases, they just have not had any surge, period. End of story. Sweden, starting in July, went down to about 230, 213, somewhere in the 200 to 300 case a day range. Okay, right now, they're up to like a 700 cases a day range. Their chart is extremely mild. They're not seeing a giant spike in Sweden. Could that have something to do with the fact that they pursued a very Floridian strategy of shield the vulnerable and let everybody else go to work, largely without masks? Is that a possibility? One of the things that we now know, according to Israeli studies, is that natural immunity may be more durable than vaccine immunity. And nonetheless, the idea here is that if you want people to live any form of real life, if you want people to get back to work at any point, if you want anyone to go back to normal at any point, it is because you are selfish and terrible. That's because we are now engaged in a bizarre single factor analysis where the only thing we care about is preventing transmission of COVID. That's stupid. It's really dumb. I was talking with someone today at length about this particular issue. And he was saying, well, why do you have different answers than so many of the public health specialists? And I said, first of all, it depends which ones you talk to. If you talk to Mari McCary over at Johns Hopkins, or if you talk to Jay Bhattacharya over at Stanford, even if you talk to former CDC Director Robert Redfield, even, by the way, if you talk to former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, they all agree with a lot of the things that I'm saying. But put that aside. Maybe the reason that I disagree with so many public health experts is not because we are looking at different data. Maybe we're looking at the same data, but their priority is not my priority. Their priority is no one should ever get COVID again. And my priority is people should be allowed to live free now that the risk has been mitigated to the fullest possible extent available for normal human beings. Okay, this is why it is so maddening to me when you are seeing, for example, the Jen Psaki's and Joe Biden's of the world attacking Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. It is absolutely maddening to me. Because if you look once again at the death rates from COVID in Florida overall, Florida still ranks like 26th in the pack. Florida never should have been the bugaboo. They have the second oldest state in the country. And again, the oldest state, because I don't really count Maine. Maine, again, has 7 people and a moose. Okay, so the fact that 6 of those people are old means nothing. Florida has a bevy of old people. Florida's an extremely elderly populated state. And DeSantis still, without the population adjustment, ranks like 26th in terms of deaths per 100,000. The media are not interested in telling you that. They're interested in ripping on DeSantis. And the answer is because DeSantis, like you, like me, like many Americans, is trying to balance a variety of factors when it comes to COVID. And those factors do include things like, do I really need to mask my kid when they go to school? In the United States, fewer than 400 children have died under the age of 18, a subgroup of 73 plus million Americans. Okay, there is no evidence that Delta is more deadly for kids than the prior variants. That is according to Joe Biden's own administration. That evidence does not exist. That is NIH Director Francis Collins saying that himself. The evidence when it comes to masking in classrooms does not exist. It doesn't exist. We talked about this yesterday. There is no comparative masking in classrooms versus non-masking in classrooms study that demonstrates that masking in classrooms is deeply effective in preventing some sort of cataclysm that's to come. Okay, but if you don't care about any of those priorities, if your only priority is no one should ever get sick again, the answer is going to be John Travolta in The Bubble Boy. And that's what these folks want. This is why Jen Psaki is trying to make an enemy of Ron DeSantis. Like, listen to Jen Psaki here. It's pretty wild.
A headline from the New York Post from, I believe, 2 days ago. Team Biden's war on DeSantis is all about kneecapping a successful governor, a GOP governor. Could you address that concern, please?
Our war is not on DeSantis. It's on the virus, which we're trying to kneecap. And he does not seem to want to participate in that effort to kneecap the virus, hence our concern.
Screw you. He doesn't want to participate on what planet? 93% of Florida seniors have had at least 1 dose of the vaccine, and well over 80% of seniors in Florida have had 2 doses of the vaccine. He doesn't want to kneecap the virus. No, it's just that he does not believe that it is possible to completely kill off the virus because there's no evidence it's possible to completely kill off the virus worldwide. Okay, you're lying. Okay, you're just lying. Everyone would like to see fewer people die. There are other priorities that must be balanced there. Okay, just as there always are in politics. The most ridiculous, stupid, and corrupt game in politics is if it saves just one life. Because that can apply to literally anything. If it would save just one life, we could outlaw all cars. If it would save just one life, we could lock you in your home permanently. If it would save just one life, then we could make sure that no one ever walked outside their front door. Forever, we could do that. No one's willing to do that. Priorities have to be balanced. But of course, the White House doesn't want to balance those priorities. So instead, they're just promoting as much sort of lockdown nonsense as they possibly can. We'll get to that in just one moment. First, let us talk about the fact that you really don't need to go to an auto parts store pretty much ever because you have the interwebs. It's a great place, rockauto.com. It's so much easier than walking into a store and somebody demanding quick and specific answers to the car part that you need. It takes you 20 minutes to figure it out. Finally, the guy behind the counter is like, okay, but we don't have it in stock, bro. You're going to have to order it and plus 20%, it'll be 3 weeks. Or you could just go to rockauto.com and get the cheaper price and it'll come directly to your door. So why wouldn't you just do that? Makes a lot more sense. RockAuto.com is a family business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go to RockAuto.com, shop for auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. The catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. You can quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Head on over to RockAuto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Shapiro in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Again, that's RockAuto.com. No reason for you to head on over to the auto parts store. Do everything you need on the magical interwebs at RockAuto.com right now. Alrighty, we'll get to more of the Democrats' lockdown mentality politics. Again, it is not rooted in evidence. First, your reminder, the authoritarian moment is here. Not just like my book, but actually like the authoritarian moment. Like we are experiencing authoritarianism for your state and local governments. We're experiencing it from the top levels of the Biden administration. And of course, we are experiencing it from all of America's major institutions. If you want to know how things got this bad, and more importantly, how to fight back, you need my book, The Authoritarian Moment. It was number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list again this week. Continues to sell like insane numbers of copies. Join the movement against the authoritarian moment by buying a copy of The Authoritarian Moment right now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any other major bookseller. Go get your copy right now. Leave a 5-star review if you like what you read. Also, you'll remember, it is no secret that Candace owns knows how to light up Twitter. But if you haven't heard, she is now opening her studio to one lucky VIP winner. It's pretty spectacular stuff. If you sign up right now as a Daily Wire member with code VIP, you get 25% off your new membership, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win a trip for two, you and a guest, to the Daily Wire studios to see Candace live. Not only will you meet Candace, you'll get an inside look at her studio and front row seats to watch her take down leftists live and in action on her talk show, Candace. So, get a great deal on a new Daily Wire membership at dailywire.com/subscribe with code VIP and 25% off so you can automatically be entered for a chance to win that VIP experience. Other news. We've had a lot to celebrate here at Daily Wire, including the massive success of our newest podcast, The Morning Wire, intent on supplying Americans with a daily dose of nothing but the facts. It's been topping the Apple and Spotify charts since its recent release. It's the only daily news podcast that values your time and the actual honest-to-God truth. While we're working overtime to bring you the news you need to know, we need your help to keep the facts trending toward number one. So subscribe, start listening right now to Morning Wire on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. It's brought to you by Daily Wire editor-in-chief John Bickley and co-host Georgia Howe. Morning Wire will wake you up with the latest developments in politics, sports, culture, and education, all with a heavy emphasis on the facts in 15 bite-sized minutes, perfect for your daily commute. Again, subscribe and listen to Morning Wire on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a beat. If you like what you hear, leave a 5-star review, tell the podcast platforms conservative news belongs at number one on the charts. You are listening to the largest, fastest-growing conservative podcast and radio show in the nation. Well, in the absence of evidence, and also in the absence of any sort of real moral case for why they're doing what they're doing, the Democrats, the left across the board, their basic idea here is to just imply that everybody they don't like wants people to die, right? We are back to where we were at the beginning of the pandemic when people were saying, we really need to take into account all of the countervailing factors. And people were saying, well, you just want to kill grandma. We're right back there. It never waned. And right now, the only thing that they keep saying over and over and over again is that they want zero COVID. And zero COVID is not a thing. It is just not a thing. So instead, they're not talking about all of the dictatorial measures they're going to take. So Jen Psaki said, we are lifting up and supporting private sector vaccination mandates. Okay, now, let's just recall, this is the federal government talking about how it wants private industries to do what the federal government itself will not do. Right? That's what this is. This is the exact same thing as when the federal government says they want Facebook to ban particular types of speech. Now, they're saying, what we would really like is for all of these corporations to do what we're not doing and mandate the vaccines. Remember, still FDA emergency use authorization. I am very much pro-vaccine. In fact, here's the thing. I'm more pro-vaccine than any of these people. You know why? Because now that I've had the vaccine, I'm done. I'm done. And that means that I don't care whether you have the vaccine or not. I mean, I'd prefer that you do for your own peace of mind, for your own safety. But if you choose not to get the vaccine, it doesn't affect me because all that's going to happen to me in all likelihood, and when I say in all likelihood, I mean in 99.99% of cases, all that's going to happen to me if I get a breakthrough case is I will have the sniffles, which is perfectly acceptable to me. That is a massive downgrade from the possibility that I was going to die from this thing or that my parents were going to die from this thing. Okay, so I care, again, I have more faith in the vaccines than any of these people apparently. And yet they're the ones who are saying they want to cudgel corporations into doing what they won't do.
It's a front door way of lifting up private sector companies who are taking steps through carrots and sticks, through incentives, and through mandates in some cases to get more people vaccinated and to make sure they're protecting their workforce. I would note that this was intentionally a diverse group of industries. So the airline industry, university systems, healthcare industry, small businesses. We wanted to share the work they're doing and support these efforts. And today is an example of us lifting up the private sector taking steps that make sense.
Funny how they're in favor of the private sector when the private sector is being hijacked by them to do what they want. When Sean Penn is talking about how corporations need to mirror Sean Penn, you should be very afraid. Sean Penn is a dude who hangs out. He gave a eulogy for Hugo Chavez. Okay, this is not somebody who is congenitally pro-corporation. This is somebody who's happy with corporations when they do his bidding.
This is one of those things that should be mandatory that we all get, with the exception, the very few exceptions of those people who, for whatever the medical condition might offset it. But I do think that vaccines need to be mandatory, and I do think that all businesses, movie business, all business, need to take the lead.
Okay, it's funny how all the people on the left who hate corporations and believe the corporations are the root of all evil, now want corporations to take the lead. How strange. How strange. Meanwhile, it's getting dystopian out there. So YouTube apparently has now suspended Rand Paul for the great sin of questioning the efficacy of masks. This is according to Just the News. Quote, Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul announced Tuesday he has been censored by YouTube, which he described as becoming a quote-unquote arm of the government. He told Just the News Tuesday on a conference call, we've had 2 speeches taken down. This last one was, I think, a short speech. The access to the entire YouTube channel is no longer available.
Recently, I shared a video on my YouTube page. It was an interview between myself and a journalist where we discussed a variety of topics, including the science behind wearing masks. Apparently, because I dared to contradict Dr. Fauci and the government, YouTube has removed my video. YouTube said the video violated their policy because of my comments on masks, and that they don't allow videos that contradict government's guidance on COVID. YouTube may be a private entity, but they're acting like an arm of the government, censoring those who present an alternative view to the science deniers in Washington.
So who exactly are they going to listen to then? Right? Who exactly are they going to censor? Are they going to censor Zeke Emanuel? Zeke Emanuel is a COVID advisor to President Biden. Zeke Emanuel is one of the architects of Obamacare. Here he was yesterday saying cloth masks aren't good enough against Delta. By the way, right now, as I've mentioned, we're in Hawaii. They put the mask mandates back on. You're supposed to be wearing the mask literally everywhere, including like on the beach and out in public. Like it's crazy. It's totally insane. Okay, and most of the people who I've been seeing wearing masks are wearing either surgical masks or cloth masks. Okay, that is likely, according to Joe Biden's own sources, to not be particularly effective. I'm not saying it. You want to ban Zeke Emanuel? Ban Zeke Emanuel. Okay, here's Zeke Emanuel saying that.
Wearing gaiters or just simple cloth masks are not good enough, and getting N95 is good. It's also important to make sure you're getting an N95 that's NIOSH approved. There are lots of fakes out there. About 60% of the KN95s appear to be counterfeit, and a lot of them not made to the high standards of 95% protection. But I totally agree with you, Andrea, that we do need to up our game. It's not just masking. It's proper masking, including the nose, and it's masking with a good mask like an N95.
Okay, can I mention something about KN95s? So I asked my wife about this because she had to take classes with regard to how you properly wear personal protective equipment, right, when you're in a hospital. You are supposed to change your KN95 every time you leave a patient. Every single patient, you're supposed to change your KN95. Have you ever seen anyone operate this way? People wear the KN95, the same one, for like weeks on end, right? They go home, they take it off because they're expensive. They put them back on, and then they wear it the next day. Throughout the day, they take them off. They'll put them in their back pocket while they're eating. They'll take them out of their back pocket. Like they're putting. Again, this does go to questions of efficacy. It's not just Zeke Emanuel, by the way. Michael Osterholm is a former Biden advisor on COVID. He says the exact same thing.
We know that face cloth coverings can reduce the amount of virus that you may inhale. But to be fully protected in the way that we believe, particularly with this variant that we have today, Delta, you need to have the kind of protection that comes with an N95 or a KN95 for kids, which are available in children's sizes. And just putting something over your face in of itself doesn't protect you. Now, that doesn't give anybody license to take my statement and say masking doesn't work. It's what you have to do is use effective masking, and we have done a poor job of communicating that, and I think CDC is in part responsible for that.
Yes, they're entirely responsible. Not in part, entirely. And by the way, KN95s for kids? KN95s for kids? Are you out of your damned minds? Have you ever met a 5-year-old? What are you talking about? There's still no verifiable data suggesting that masking in school mandatorily has lowered case rates anywhere. That data does not exist because there's no comp group. We talked about this yesterday. There's some places that did it. There's some places that didn't. The comps don't exist. Maybe it helps. Maybe it doesn't. The one thing that we know for a fact is that an unbelievably low number of kids have been killed by COVID. Thank God. Thank God for that. And now you're trying to mask up my 7-year-old in perpetuity? For the risk that she, by the way, a risk that lower than the risk that she was going to die of the flu, right? That this is much less deadly than the flu for small children. Not for everybody. For everybody else, it's more deadly than the flu. For small children, it's less deadly than the flu. Okay, as Ron DeSantis points out, by the way, it is amazing what we know and what we don't at this point with regard to COVID. It is truly incredible. You understand that in the United States, we still have no idea how many Americans actually had COVID? We have no idea. Isn't that kind of bizarre? Like if I ask you how many Americans had COVID, you would not know the answer. You know who else wouldn't know the answer? The NIH. The NIH did 0 serious national seroprevalence studies. You can tell who had it in Britain. Britain tested people. They did antibody tests. And so they know how close they are to herd immunity. We have no idea how many people actually got COVID over the course of this pandemic. That's insane.
A lot of parents have come. They've come to me. They've come to their school boards and said, this has been very difficult on their young kids to have to sit there for 8 hours with this. It's not natural. It's never been studied what the effects of that are. You know, NIH has a $42 billion budget. They've not spent a single penny since COVID started studying how these mitigations affect kids. So ultimately, my view is it's a parent's decision.
Okay, and it should be a parent's decision, but apparently it's not supposed to be. Because in the end, your freedom is of very little concern to our great public health overlords. Here's Arnold Schwarzenegger saying that you shouldn't worry about your freedom anymore. You don't need your freedom. It's not important anymore. Here we go. Arnold.
There is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom. Because with freedom comes obligations and kind of responsibilities. We cannot just say, I have the right to do X, Y, and Z. When you affect other people, that is when it gets serious. Yeah, you have the freedom to wear no mask, but you know something, you're a schmuck for not wearing a mask.
Give up your freedom if you want to live. Come with me. Like, what in the... No. Again, you want to... This is like saying that I am somehow responsible for you after I put on my seatbelt in my car. What I really need to do is I need to strap a mattress to the front of my car in case you didn't... In case you decided you didn't want to wear your seatbelt and you go crashing through the front windshield of your car in a car crash, I need to drive around with a mattress on the front of my car to make sure that it catches you in case you didn't wear your seatbelt. Okay, this is, it's amazing. I mean, and not only that, we got to do this for your kids. We got to do this. Very important we do this for your kids. How insane has this become? The New South Wales health minister, a woman named Kerry Chant, this is in Australia. She came out and she said, if you see other people, try not to talk to them. Try not to have conversations with other humans. What in the action? What is going on? We've all lost our minds. By the way, the total number of cases in New South Wales in Australia right now, their 7-day rolling average is 312 cases. The population of New South Wales is 8.166 million humans. Again, total case count is in the 300s. And she's saying, don't talk to any of the other 8 million people living around you because you might give them COVID. This is so... What? Their 7-day daily death average in New South Wales right now is 2. 2. You've all lost your minds. I'm sorry, you've all gone crazy.
Whilst it is in human nature to engage in conversation with others, to be friendly, unfortunately, this is not the time to do that. So even if you run into your next door neighbour in the shopping centre, in the Coles, whilst you're at Coles or Woolworths or Aldi or any other grocery shop, don't start up a conversation. Now is the time for minimising your interactions with others.
This is insane. By the way, Israel's doing the same thing. Israel's also crazy. The cabinet in Israel just voted to expand what they call the Green Pass to all branches of the economy except malls and places of commerce. It will apply starting at the age of 3. Now, you may be asking yourself, wait a second, I thought kids couldn't get the vaccine yet. They can't. What does this mean? It means that anyone who's unvaccinated, including small children, will now be required to present a negative COVID test before going to a swimming pool, gym, academic institution, sport and cultural event, conference, museum, library, restaurant, or hotel. So if I want to take my 5-year-old to a restaurant in Israel, I have to present a negative COVID test, presumably one from the last couple of days. The test for children up to 11 will be paid for by the state, whereas anyone 12 or older will be required to fund the screening on their own. The entire world has lost their minds. They've lost their minds. They've lost their damn minds. They've no connection with reality anymore. Everybody is so, you talk about the rise of safetyism. This is the triumph of safetyism. It's over for freedom if people have the perception of safety, that a vaccine is out there, you can protect yourself, and we still have to lock down every aspect of society, including talking to other people and basic freedom, according to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and not masking children, and also, like going to a restaurant with your kids. This is nuts. Alrighty, we'll be back here tomorrow with much, much more. In the meantime, have yourself a wonderful evening. Also, coming up soon, The Matt Walsh Show airs at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check it out over at dailywire.com. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. The Ben Shapiro Show is produced by Elliot Feld. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover. Production manager, Pavel Wydowski. Associate producer, Bradford Carrington. Host producer, Justin Barber. The show is edited by Adam Sayevitz. Audio is mixed by Mike Coromina. Hair and makeup is by Fabiola Cristina. Production assistant, Jessica Kranz. The Ben Shapiro Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright, Daily Wire 2021.
John Bickley here, Daily Wire editor-in-chief. Wake up every morning with our new show, Morning Wire. On today's episode, vaccine passports are on the rise, the showdown between Texas Republicans and Democrats heats up, and the California recall election tightens. Join us and get the facts first on the news you need to know with our show, Morning Wire.